What's up guys, I'm Dave Klein, and welcome back to my Demon Souls lore series. Today, I'm going to discuss the wider story of Demon Souls, the origins of the Old One, and the multiple demonic scourges that would affect the lands. Before starting, I should warn you that there will be major spoilers. So, that said, let's jump into the story of Demon Souls. On the first day, man was granted a soul, and with it, clarity. On the second day, upon earth was planted an irrevocable poison, a soul-devouring demon.
But God is merciful, and so created the Old One, a poison to the poison.
So, what exactly is this Old One? This is something that was actually brought to my attention in one of my other lore videos by the Swordsman 100. This is a theory that was originally presented to Epic Namebro by DJ Slayer 0791, and it's pretty interesting. In our first cinematic with the Monumentals, they tell us the following.
In the distant past, under benevolent rule, the world was united owing to the soul arts.
First, focus on this monument that the various monumentals are gathered around. The image that's depicted is that of a plant that's starting to blossom. Now, take the dialogue from the intro. On the second day, upon earth was planted an irrevocable poison, a soul-devouring demon.
Until a lust for power caused the awakening of the Old One.
In this next scene, immediately following the sapling, we see a twisted and gnarled plant branching out from the ground, presumably the Old One. When we finally meet the Old One, it's shown to be dried out branches and trees with its innards filled with vegetation. But before the Old One would go awry, according to the monumental we meet, all was quite good. The people used soul arts to help unite the world under a benevolent rule. So what are the soul arts? Well, given its name, it's magic that stems from the soul, which all humans and all living things have been granted.
A soul is the essence of thought, which is latent in all living things.
According to the Monumental, however, the power of the soul arts stems directly from demons.
You must never forget, the power that you now enjoy contradicts the essence of the soul, for it stems from demon magic.
And we know thanks to Sage Frake, all magic is invigorated with the presence of demons.
As you know, magic is one of the soul arts. The scourge of boletaria has activated all souls and energized all magic. Perhaps, then, we should work to preserve this state of heightened reality?
This lust for more power would lead to mankind's very undoing, and their peace wasn't to last.
In the distant past, under benevolent rule, the world was united owing to the soul arts. Until a lust for power caused the awakening of the Old One. Across the land seeped a colorless, deep fog, and the world faced extinction at the hands of the demons.
The Old One, a demonic entity forever hungry for all souls, those of man and all living things, was awoken thanks to mankind's lust for power. By feeding on the souls of the world, this would mean the end of all living things as we know it, and with it, a fog slowly crept through the land. It's very likely some of the first demons who came about during this period were the primeval demons we can find throughout the game during Pure Black Tendency. They aren't as strong as other demons who present themselves as bosses we find throughout the game. Very notably, the Monumental mentions that across the land seeps a colorless deep fog, and these primeval demons, upon defeat, drop colorless demon souls, linking them with this spread. They also somewhat resemble the Old One in shape.
When one loses the soul, one loses the mind, and a land barren of souls is absorbed by fog and banished to the infinite darkness. The Old One is a bottomless pit of nothingness, with an insatiable appetite for the souls collected by its faithful demons.
So, as the Old One is awakened, demons come into fruition with powerful demon souls. These demonic entities collect more souls for the Old One, which it consumes.
Thanks be, we were able to lull the Old One back to its slumber, yet only after the loss of innumerable souls, and most of the world lost, erased by the fog.
Somehow, the Monumentals managed to lure the Old One to slumber. They were able to link the awakening of the Old One with soul arts and outright ban them.
We contained the Old One here below the Nexus, and prohibited the soul arts. Finally, we became monumentals, half-living sentinels of the fabric of reality. Alas, the other monumentals have perished, and only I remain.
So, how did the Monumentals lure the Old One to slumber? Well, there's one more demon we need to take a look at.
I have always been here in this Nexus. I was here when the Old One awakened, and I will be here when it rests once more.
The Maiden in Black has been in the Nexus, at the very least, ever since the Old One awakened. Something more is that the Maiden in Black, who aids demon slayers with her command of soul power, was once one of the oldest and deadliest of the demons. The following is going to be more of speculation into the events during this early period of the game, and a lot of it is open for interpretation, so let me know your thoughts. Perhaps the Maiden in Black was actually one of the demons during the initial Scourge of Demons, along with those primeval demons, especially if she was one of the oldest of them. Using her soul grants the ability of Soul Sucker, which absorbs the souls of whomever one touches. Her power utilizes soul arts to transfer souls and gain or give incredible power thanks to them.
What is it? Seekest thou the power of souls? Of course. After all, thou requirest strength. Go ahead, touch the demon inside me. Let these vagabond souls become thine own.
Because we know that a lust for power awakened the Old One, what if it was actually the Maiden in Black who had this lust for power that ultimately awakened the Old One? By using Soul Sucker, that would show a true lust for power, and she was once one of the oldest, most dangerous demons herself. We never learn from the Monumental how they got the Old One to go back to slumber, but we do know that the Maiden in Black has been bound to the Nexus, similar to the player, with a Nexial binding which we can spot on her leg. The mark of those imprisoned by the Nexus. The bearer of this seal is bound to the Nexus, never to be free, even in death. Upon killing her in the Nexus, we see this directly at work, as she will soon get right back up.
I am sorry. I cannot die. Not while the Nexus binds me.
Not only that, but she herself tells us,
I have always been here in this Nexus.
What if the Monumentals managed to capture her in her demonic form and bind her to the Nexus in order to do their bidding?
Have you received assistance from the Candle Maiden? She is a prisoner of the Nexus. It is her duty to lull the Old One back to its slumber. That is why she helps those who hunt demons. And that is why she has become a demon herself.
According to Loki Souls, who does fantastic translations of the original Japanese, and I'll link to in the description, the original game's dialogue was a little more nefarious. Has the Firekeeper helped you well? She's captured in this linchpin to help those who kill demons and lead the ancient beast to slumber again. Otherwise, she'd be a demon by choice and the like. It would seem she was actually captured and put into the Nexus for the very specific purpose of putting the Old One to slumber. So, what if the Nexus was created as a prison for the Maiden in Black, and with the sole purpose of countering the Old One? In the Monumentals cutscene, we see a giant object hovering above the Old One, and we know that the Old One is below the Nexus just by location name alone. On top of that, if you look high up in the sky while below the Nexus, you can see a shadow above. As this game is on the PS5, I highly doubt this was some sort of wrapping error, and find it to be pretty likely we're looking at the shadow of the Nexus high above.
Thou canst not quit the Nexus.
For how could you simply leave something floating in the sky? So I theorize that the Monumentals were a part of their self-proclaimed benevolent race who utilized the soul arts. The Maiden in Black was as well, but her lust for power and use of Soulsucker eventually awakened the Old One. In order to stop it, the now Monumentals gathered together, created a Nexial prison above the Old One where they managed to imprison the Maiden in Black until she put the Old One to slumber.
You have destroyed all of the demons. You soon shall hear the call of the Old One. Then the Candle Maiden shall guide you below the Nexus, where the Old One awaits. She will lull the Old One back to slumber. That is, after all, her purpose.
After putting the Old One back to slumber, the Monumentals banned the soul arts. However, I believe they used these arts in part to create the Nexus and in part to bind specific people with the Nexial binding to it. I also find it likely that this is the power they've used to live longer and watch over the Nexus and state of the world.
Finally, we became Monumentals, half-living sentinels of the fabric of reality. Cease. You are wasting time. I am a Monumental. You cannot harm me.
There is some conflicting dialogue regarding what happens to soul arts once the Old One is put back to slumber, which we need to discuss. The Monumental tells us,
We contained the Old One here below the Nexus, and prohibited the soul arts. The soul arts shall be lost once the Old One is lulled back to slumber.
Boletaria was spared from the demons, but also lost its knowledge of the soul arts.
On one hand, we're told the Monumentals banned the soul arts after the Old One was contained. On the other, we're told they were lost. And the narrator tells us that it was specifically knowledge of the soul arts that were lost. To me, this indicates that soul arts can be performed, as in the past, without the Old One being awake. However, demons heighten awareness of these and the power of these, which inevitably leads to greed, a lust for power, and the reawakening of the Old One. Okay, all of that said, let's move past the theories and back to what we definitely know. After the Old One was lulled back to slumber thanks to the Monumentals, they put together measures to prevent this from happening again.
In order to mend the fabric of what lands still remained, we entrusted 6 leaders with 6 precious archstones. One to the king of a small yet industrious land. One to the king of the burrowers underground. One to the wise queen of the great ivory tower. One to the chieftain of lost and ill-fortuned souls. One to the shaman of the tempest-worshipping shadowmen. And the last to the great giants of the northern lands. The archstones were placed in the fringelands that survived. We contained the Old One here below the Nexus, and prohibited the soul arts. Finally, we became Monumentals, half-living sentinels of the fabric of reality.
Archstones were placed in 6 regions by the Monumentals, all with widely varying cultures. The first of these was one to the king of a small yet diligent land, which, as we find out, is the northern kingdom of Boletaria. Looking at the map, we can try to determine where some of these locations were. Boletaria, I think, is a little more up for debate, but as we know the castle itself was built in between a mountain and it runs along a river, one of these 2 locations looks like possibilities to me.
Before the Blight, Boletaria was a grand kingdom. The king, his knights, and his subjects were modest and plain, but also steadfast and compassionate. I have spent much time in my studies in the cultured countries of the south, yet no country holds my heart as does Boletaria.
Astraea, or rather Ariona, son of King Allant, has a fond worldview of Boletaria. However, while we hear glowing reviews from those who are royal or of high rank in Boletaria,
Our great king was a magnanimous leader. He was stolid, spirited, caring of his subjects. He fought valiantly against the vile and depraved.
There was another side. It was a kingdom where the poor were forced to fight for the rich without much reward.
But hell, at least the demons don't send us to our deaths in battle. There's this skinny fellow, clad in the most lavish armor, who's always mumbling about some mission. He's another one who's managed to stay sane, like yourself. Probably some pampered little lordling by the looks of his attire. I'd give an arm just for the buttons off his shirt.
Meanwhile, Stonefang Mines, which Boletaria had a strong relationship with, may have been close by. Perhaps, then, this mountainous region to the east. Here, the second archstone was given to the King of the Burrowers underground, a city of miners who maintained the giant tunnel. Long ago, the efforts of the hard-headed burrowers allowed Boletarian soldiers to carry out their work. These miners worshipped the dragon god, and an underground shrine was constructed both to worship and imprison the dragon god. The miners' ancestors were inspired to faith by the great dragon bones, and paid their respects by maintaining the shrine with great care. It's also likely that Stonefang was affected by the first scourge of demons, for ages ago, a fire demon was imprisoned in an underground temple littered with the bones of dragons. All hardstone and sharpstone ore in the game, used for basic enhancement of weapons, seems to come from these mines, so it makes sense Boletaria would have had an alliance with Stonefang, if not perhaps taking them over at some point. In a southern area with what looks to be towers is likely the location of Latria. We're regularly told that southern Boletaria was known to be a comparatively advanced region compared to northern Boletaria, where the scourge is spreading and emanating from. Similarly, Latria is known for its wealth and the intelligence of those who dwell there. It was here that the third archstone was given to the Wise Queen of the Great Ivory Tower. Nobility and status would seem to have been highly important in Latria, where we find the former noble's wife sells a ring of avarice, likely describing their lifestyle. Luxurious gold ring fitted with a large jewel, once a symbol of wealth and debauchery. However, their large prison shows a darker side, and how they likely treated the poor and those they found disagreeable. Taking a look at our map, it looks like on the western edge was the Valley of Defilement and its depraved chasm. The Valley of Defilement was the location of the Chieftain of Lost and Ill-Fortuned Souls, who was given the fourth Archstone. Multiple streams run and eventually end here, making way for a swamp that would end up collecting all of the muck and garbage from neighboring kingdoms. This bile that collected into the base of the valley would poison and cause plague for its many inhabitants. All that is unclean ends up in the giant swamp at the base of the Valley of Defilement. The swamp is a cesspool of putrilage, vermin, and plague. On the opposite end of the map, we find an island on the eastern side which is likely the location of the Shrine of Storms. The island shrine are the Shadowmen who worship storms and mourn the dead. As eastern weapons and rings, such as the Ronin ring, can be found here, it would make sense to be mapped out to the east. Here, the fifth Archstone was given to a shaman of the Tempest-worshipping Shadowmen. As they were located on an island and were likely a seafaring population, it makes sense they would worship storms, as storms could mean life or death on the sea. Those who sought storms and braved them were considered as heroes, and their dead were honored in a ceremony. The hero of storms shall never act in cowardice, nor shall he devour a single bird of the sky. If the dead fail to please the adjudicator's master, the harvest gold crow, their carcasses shall be gnawed upon until nothing but bones remain. The Shadowmen believed in death they were presented to an adjudicator, who would judge them of being worthy or not to be presented to the storm beasts who represented clouds and storms. The hero's remains were cleansed with bright water and offered to the Storm King, a beacon for countless storm beasts whose broad wings blacken the sky. In the north, the sixth and final Archstone was given to the great giants of the northern lands. And while we can pretty easily map out this region, as the Archstone in the Nexus has been destroyed, there isn't much more we know about the area. For a more in-depth look at each of these locations, check out my other lore videos highlighting the history and demons of each location. Equally important is west of Boletaria, where the game's in-game church would seem to be located. Saint Astraea is known as Saint Astraea of the West, and both Selen Vinland and Garl Vinland are from the west, for
I am Selen of the West. I seek my brother Garl Vinland.
Selen's gear is the dull gold set. In the Highlands, this dull gold armor is worn into battle by women of high rank. As that's the case, if this is the Valley of Defilement, which is inflicted by fog, the region of the church would be even further west. It's possible this is also where Myrd was located, which is likely is what was active at this point in the timeline. The first temple was built in Myrd, a land that fell long ago. The Church of Demon Souls and its religion would become a major influence over the land, spreading far and wide. This church has a strong belief in a singular god and is very anti-magic.
A miracle is a heavenly act, but spells are the acts of demons, the work of soul arts. They have similar effects, and yet one is clearly evil, and the other is clearly good. Magicians, in the end, are mere servants of the demons.
Ironically, while there likely is a god in the game who created the Old One in the world, the god whom the church seems to worship is actually the Old One, that irrevocable, poisonous, soul-devouring demon. The church utilized talismans to perform miracles, and what's very likely one of their original talismans, the Talisman of Beasts, which is an old wooden amulet, features a symbolic depiction of the Old One. What was considered a depiction of God was in fact an image of the Old One, portrayed as a force of feral chaos. To cement this connection, the Talisman of Beasts can perform both sorcery, which the church now considers blasphemous, and a representation of demons, as well as performing miracles. Over time, the church amulets would evolve into the now standard Talisman of God, a handcrafted metal amulet featuring a symbolic depiction of God used to cast miracles. As both miracles and sorcery utilize the soul arts and the church is so anti-sorcery, how did the church spread so widely? Well, if we take a look at the miracles in Demon Souls, they perform spells that are antithesis to the demons they represent. The Storm Demon is a demon who shoots out magical thorns, so its demon soul can be turned into a miracle which symbolizes the power of God in opposition to the forces of evil. This miracle is anti-magic field, and pretty clearly opposite to a beast who utilizes magic. The Meat Cleaver, made with the Adjudicator's soul, steals a small amount of HP from its target when attacking. So the miracle from its soul created is regeneration and a symbolic denunciation of the heretical soul-devouring Adjudicator, which gradually restores the caster's HP. Meanwhile, the demon Leechmonger's soul creates the spell of Poison Cloud, which poisons people. Thus, its soul is used to create a miracle which is an anathema to the miasma and disease that gurgle at the defiled base of the valley, and thus is Cure, which cures the caster of all status ailments. So, while these still utilize the soul arts, it makes sense why a religion would pop up around the time of the first scourge of demons who thought anything that seemed like the opposite of what the demons were must be good. Demons are bad, therefore the anathema to them, a denunciation of them, and any spell that performs something counter to what a demon represents must be good, right? Of course, at the end of the day, these are still soul arts, the church is still corruptible, and those who belong could still lust for power and take advantage of others. This religion seems to have spread far and wide.
I was branded a witch at a very young age, and have been persecuted ever since. Although I never had ill intentions, this black craft of mine is intrinsically evil. If there is a God, he gave us souls to do good, not to practice witchcraft. My accusers detested my dark arts for good reason, for the path I have taken is tainted. This has been one of my realizations since coming to Boletaria.
While we don't know where Yuria hails from, it's pretty clear that the church's religion branded her as a witch. We see a stigma against anyone who isn't a part of the church that was born with an innate connection to the soul arts. Legend says that cursed witches are born holding the ring of magical nature. The natives of savage lands avoid it at all costs.
We neutralized the Old One and banned the soul arts. Then we spread the archstones, and in order to mend reality, monumentals we became. However, man's memory of history is ever short, and before long he repeated his mistakes. The monumentals perished, and the archstones were long forgotten. and the short-sighted King Allant once again roused the Old One.
Centuries passed, and perhaps even longer, long enough that the shaman of the Shrine of Storms and their culture completely faded from existence, now considered ancient.
This shrine was used in a ghastly ritual by an ancient tribe, but all that's left here now is a fine pile of dust.
While there was a king of burrowers underground who was given an archstone and likely one of the ancestors who worshipped and revered the dragon god, they're now in the past. The miners' ancestors were inspired to faith by the great dragon bones and paid their respects by maintaining the shrine with great care. We no longer hear about any king, but we do know that a city of miners maintained the giant tunnel. Long ago, the efforts of the hard-headed burrowers allowed boletarian soldiers to carry out their work. So it's possible there's no longer a king, and Stonefang was perhaps annexed into northern Boletaria as a whole. Meanwhile, there was an interesting development in Latria.
Master Frake is a great man who has systemized the magic of the soul arts to make it possible for human imitation.
According to demons-souls.com, a now-defunct official website, Sage Frake was known as a renowned magician known as the Visionary. He is familiar with the working of souls and has organized his findings in a scholarly manner. He is the Sage of Jormungandr. Jormungandr has a strong connection to Latria and could potentially be the royal line there. The royalty there wear the silver coronet, wizard set, and utilize the silver catalyst. While the silver coronet is described as a decorative piece bestowed only to magicians of the distinguished Jormungandr school in the Demon's Souls remake, whereas the original game puts it as given to the famous magicians of the distinguished Jormungandr family, the point is clear. The royalty of Latria are associated with Jormungandr in some fashion. The silver catalyst has a similar description. We can link all this to Latria, for the final location at the top of the Ivory Tower is known as the Throne Room of Jormungandr. So, Latria took a strong interest in Sage Frake's soul arts rediscovery. Latria is known for its intelligence overall, with the first queen who was bequeathed the archstone described by the Monumental as wise. The royalty class, as mentioned above, are trained in magic. Latria is bathed in moonlight, with Moonlight Stone being an ore that applies a strong magical effect to a weapon, and exclusively found in Latria. I, therefore, find it very likely that the strong spread of the knowledge of soul arts began here in Latria. It was long enough ago to establish that royalty were taught it, but not so long ago as Sage Frake is still alive. To note, the church also unwittingly dabbled in spreading the soul arts. The rich who would become invested in the church have numerous artifacts that are endowed with some kind of magic. As an example, Selin Vinland's curved sword, Blind, is one of Vinland's treasures. The blade is illusory, and light as a feather, it can pass through a shield's defenses. The warriors of the church who used these weapons, or found them, seem to get a pass, their weapons deemed holy. Vito, the Moonlight Knight, is possibly the most egregious example of this. He's a legendary warrior of the church who utilizes the large sword of Moonlight, which is a legendary large sword that shines with moonlight, and has a blue crystal blade that is composed entirely of light, making it impossible to block with a shield, one of the few remaining relics of God. While scales with faith, not intelligence, bear in mind just how strongly Moonlight is associated with sorcery and spells. And of course, at its core, faith and intelligence are two sides of the same coin, and both are soul arts. To note, in Latria, Boletarian spies can be found, and in particular in the Church of the Fool's Idol. As Boletaria was spying on Latria, I find it very likely this was to discover more about magic and the soul arts. And with the spread of the soul arts, inevitably, there came to be a lust for power. While northern Boletaria and the king of a small yet diligent land were entrusted with an archstone, it's notable that the current king is King Allant 12. That means there were 11 prior King Allants, and that's presuming the king who was given the archstone was King Allant I. We know of an old King Duran in Boletaria who lives in perpetuity as a demigod. Going further into the timeline, it would seem that King Allant became king after the rediscovery of soul arts, or at the very least, they were discovered during his reign.
King Allant XII, by channeling the power of souls, brought unprecedented prosperity to his northern kingdom of Boletaria.
we're specifically told he channeled the power of souls to bring Boletaria to prosperity, indicating a usage of the soul arts. And with that, he was finally looked at by the nobles who knew him, and his son Astraea tells us,
King Allant led Boletaria with a round table of the bravest knights. The noble twin fangs, Valifax and Bjor, Alfred, the Tower Knight, Metas, the Penetrator, and the brave tribesman Longbow Ulan and his fearsome legions.
And that knight of his round table, Bjor, has nothing but the utmost respect for King Allant.
Our great king was a magnanimous leader. He was stolid, spirited, caring of his subjects. He fought valiantly against the vile and depraved.
We're told by Astraea that,
before the Blight, Boletaria was a grand kingdom. The king, his knights, and his subjects were modest and plain, but also steadfast and compassionate. I have spent much time in my studies in the cultured countries of the south, yet no country holds my heart as does Boletaria.
But we know that King Allant XII had another interest. Soulbrant and Demonbrant were twin blades of the royal Boletarian family. Combined, they made the Northern Regalia, old symbol of the King of Boletaria. The shape of this blade unites both Soulbrant and Demonbrant as one. Even Boletarian royal family legend scarcely mentions its origins, but it is believed that a malicious force left it behind in this world along with the Old One. One half of this blade, Demonbrant, was made to be wielded against demons. The less demonic the soul of the wielder, the more powerful this blade becomes. Hence, old King Allant's choice to wield Soulbrant instead. So, taking a look at Soulbrant, we discover that it's a blade that can cut the very soul. And since his coronation, the sword has never left King Allant's side. The closer the soul of the wielder is to a demon, the more powerful this blade becomes. No wonder it was chosen by old King Allant. When a character performs good actions in the game, such as co-oping and helping other players, they gain white character tendency, and Demonbrant would become stronger in their hands. Meanwhile, if a player performs darker actions, such as killing named NPCs or invading other players' worlds and killing them as a Black Phantom, they gain black character tendency, and Soulbrant would become stronger in their hands. King Allant chose Soulbrant at his very coronation into becoming king, indicating he always had a dark side, despite what his compatriots and son may have thought of him. It's unclear exactly why, but
the monumentals perished, and the archstones were long forgotten. And the short-sighted King Allant once again roused the Old One.
Perhaps, combined with learning of Latrea's discovery of the soul arts and lusting for power with his Demonbrant, King Allant chose to awaken the Old One, thinking somehow this would make him even more powerful. After all, during his rule it seems the kingdom of Boletaria thrived thanks to his usage of the soul arts, so it would make sense that he began to search for even more power, thus awakening the Old One. After all, it would seem that demons in their emergence invigorate both miracles and spells.
As you know, magic is one of the soul arts. The scourge of boletaria has activated all souls and energized all magic. Perhaps, then, we should work to preserve this state of heightened reality? Oh, no, heaven forbid. The demons steal souls, and with them our sanity. Such blasphemy must not be permitted.
After the dark arts spread across the land, holy miracles were witnessed once again.
Either that, or perhaps there was yet another side to him.
Surely you have seen for yourself the pain and suffering that fills this world. But God is merciful, and so created the Old One, a poison to the poison. The Old One will feed upon our souls and put an end to this tragedy.
While it's certainly possible after becoming a demon for the Old One, King Allant and his disposition changed, the only thing we learn directly from him is a nihilistic view of the world.
Oh, the king! He's gone mad like the rest of them. Or perhaps he was mad in the first place. I can never tell with those eccentric royal oafs.
After awakening the Old One, King Allant evolved, or rather devolved into a horrendous shell of his former self, desperately clinging onto his beloved Soulbrant.
You fool! Don't you understand? no one wishes to go on.
In awakening the Old One, a new scourge of demons was wrought onto the world.
Boletaria was cut off from the outside world, and those who dared penetrate the deep fog never returned. But Valifax of the royal twin fangs broke free from the fog and told the world of Boletaria's plight. That the old King Allant had roused the Old One, the great beast below the Nexus, from its eternal slumber, and that a colorless fog had swept in, unleashing terrible demons.
In Boletaria, a false demonic King Allant came back from the Old One and took over the kingdom. The man who wielded untold power, calmly watching over the kingdom from on high, was not in fact old King Allant, but a demonic impostor who stood in his place. It seems this is around when he sent fat officials to do his bidding, who began wreaking havoc on the local population. Appearing just before demons ran rampant in Boletaria, the fat ministers who insinuated themselves into favor with King Allant abused the population with a feign. These fat officials even went to Stonefang, where it seems they abused the miners working there as well. Then came the dragons.
The big lizard thingy. The king led it back to us, along with those wretched demons. That monster leaves a trail of charred carcasses, which is great for business, of course. But unless you're a scavenger like me, you'd better stay clear.
It seems there was a battle, and the soldiers of Boletaria did their best to fight off the dragons and defend themselves against the onslaught of demons, but failed.
The king's defended by the black souls of mighty knights and a fire-breathing drake. They defeated even myself. That's how I ended up in the dungeon. Beware the limits of your own power.
Eventually, the knights lost, and Boletaria became a kingdom filled with the soul-starved and dragons eating the remains.
Brave knight or lowly fodder, the demons snatched their souls regardless of their station, plummeting them all into madness. And those who dare cling to their humanity were hunted down. It is the end of Great Boletaria as we know it.
In Stonefang, the city miners were dispossessed of their souls. They have no thoughts of their own and work in silence tirelessly, without purpose. The demons took on the forms of the ancient bones dug up around them, becoming the dragon god from the great dragon bones the miners' ancestors had discovered. In Latria, there was an old monk who felt dejected by the queen.
The queen banished that depraved old man from the land. He returned in strange golden garb with foul demons in tow.
This golden garb was a demon within itself, and despite seemingly knowing this, the old monk accepted this for his revenge. If you have no future to lose, then who could blame you for placing your faith in the golden robes? He returned with demonic power and took over the land, placing the royalty and nobles in prison. He then set about creating his own man-made horrific demons. In the Shrine of Storms, where there was naught but death, the demons took over even the dead. Since the appearance of the flying storm beast, the souls of the dead have been lured to the island by its demons, where they are revived by finding purchase in the bosoms of uninhabited skeletons. Here, the demons took on the forms of gods from the tribe's religion, appearing as Storm Beast, an Adjudicator, and even the Storm King. Perhaps this demon, a flying beast resembling a gigantic stingray, is a manifestation of the thoughts and feelings of the Shadow Men who worshipped it centuries ago. Finally, in the Valley of Defilement, a missionary expedition had been sent. Maiden, Astraea, and Garl Vinland found the valley and were horrified by the neglect and plague they found. Astraea was once the sixth saint, but now she lives beside those awaiting death in the Valley of Defilement. To ease the pain of the valley's dwellers, Astraea chose surrender to a demon soul over the cruel god she worshipped. Maiden Astraea, in an attempt to alleviate their suffering, willingly accepted the demon soul in order to use it for the defiled ones of the valley. However, instead of addressing the real problems of mounting corpses infesting and poisoning the water supply they used, she seemed to alleviate their pain either with spells of relief, or possibly by taking their souls, making them soul-starved, and thereby essentially lobotomizing them, a theory I found thanks to reading translations by Loki Souls, and which I discuss in depth in my Maiden Astraea in the Valley of Defilement lore video. Either way, after her entrance, its inhabitants, afflicted by poison and plague, await their deaths in this forsaken place, attacking those who wander in, hoping to offer their souls to the one woman who showed them compassion.
Valifax also spoke of the enticing power of the demon souls. Each time a demon claims a human soul, the demon's own soul is invigorated by the life force, and the power of a mature demon soul is beyond human imagination.
Warriors far and wide entered the fissure to northern Boletaria, either enticed by this rumor, or with the mission of saving Boletaria and stopping the spreading fog.
Legend spread quickly. Mighty warriors lured by the possibilities braved the fissure to breach the accursed land, but none have returned. The colorless deep fog slowly creeps beyond Boletaria's borders. Humankind faces a slow and steady extinction. The deep fog will eventually swallow all lands near and far. But Boletaria has one final hope. A lone warrior who has braved the baneful fog. Has the land found its savior? Or have the demons found a new slave?
In approaching the fissure to Boletaria, the player hears the voice of the Monumental luring them in.
Brave soul who fears not death. I shall guide you to the fissure. So that you may lull the old one back to slumber.
Upon entering the fissure, the player begins in the outpost passage. Notably, the end of this passage is a dead end with a Vanguard demon. A Vanguard demon with chains on it who would seem to have been captured by the Monumental who lured you here. Notably, the Vanguard demon who we find in the Shrine of Storms is lacking any of these chains, leading to the plausibility this particular Vanguard demon was planted here. Should you somehow be successful in defeating it, you're led directly to the Dragon God, and what could be viewed as an ambush, as the hallway you're in is an easy path for the dragon to breathe fire on you, or simply punch you. In dying, the Maiden in Black, a prisoner to the Nexus, brings you back to life.
Soul of the lost withdrawn from its vessel. Let strength be granted so the world might be mended. Soul of the lost withdrawn from its vessel. Let strength be granted so the world might be mended. So the world might be mended.
But very importantly, this time with a Nexial binding, making you too a prisoner to the Nexus. The mark of those imprisoned by the Nexus, the bearer of this seal is bound to the Nexus, never to be free, even in death.
You should know that you will be imprisoned in the Nexus forever. Just like the poor Candle Maiden. You must destroy all the demons if you wish to be freed from the curse of the Nexus.
As depressed as the crestfallen warrior is, he seems to have gotten onto this idea himself.
You came for demon souls? Or to save this land and be remembered as a hero? But it's all the same. You're just another prisoner of the Nexus. We're welcome here, as long as we keep slashing up demons. Have you met the last surviving Monumental? Those fools revived the old one on a whim. And now, they've trapped us here in the Nexus in a desperate attempt to undo their mistake.
Interestingly, he puts part of the blame of the awakening of the Old One on the Monumental, but who's to say? It does lead to the question of if King Allant claimed he would destroy the Old One once and for all so the Monumentals allowed him access. However, at this point, it's completely speculation, and every other character seems to put the blame squarely on King Allant. Either way, it's clear given the evidence that the last remaining monumental is trapping those who travel into the fog within the Nexus. It's likely that the monumental has the best of intentions to stop the old one, however, you can view their method as being less than honest.
How did you defeat my demonic reflection? How many souls might you have devoured, I wonder? The rest is up to the Old One. If it is to be, then you shall be beckoned.
Should the player accept their new fate and hunt down the various demons, they'll find themselves eventually harnessing enough souls to be summoned by the Old One.
You have destroyed all of the demons. You soon shall hear the call of the Old One. Then the Candle Maiden shall guide you below the Nexus, where the Old One awaits. She will lull the Old One back to slumber. That is, after all, her purpose.
Hark, I hear a voice of yore. The Old One calls for thee. Let us proceed below to its lair.
With the souls and power you've gathered, you now have the power to become a demon.
Old One, I have granted thy wish. A new demon. Come now, be good.
This does lead to the question of how one becomes a demon. Do they have to willingly accept a demon's soul, or can a demon simply take over a powerful being? We know Maiden and Astraea willingly accepted one, but it's unclear when it comes to the Phalanx, Tower Knight, and Penetrator demons, who were all once warriors of King Allant's Round Table. Perhaps, in order to save their kingdom, they accepted a demon's soul, but were tainted by it, becoming the demons they are now. And you too now have this opportunity should you choose it. Whatever the case, thanks to the number of demons you've defeated and souls you've gathered in the process, you are the first one to end up below the Nexus since King Allant.
You have been chosen by the Old One. Will you seek the everlasting demon souls, or has the monumental blinded you? Whatever your choice, you are our first visitor. May you be welcome here.
In slaying King Allant, you now have an option.
Thy work is done. Slayer of demons, go back above. The Nexus shall imprison thee no longer. I shall lull the Old One back to slumber. The Old One and I shall slumber evermore, as it should be. Thou mayst go, be gone to thy world.
Should you choose to let the Maiden in Black put the Old One back to slumber, you'll be able to save humanity.
My thanks. At last, the end is in sight.
Along with the Maiden, were swept back into the lulling fog. Boletaria was spared from the demons, but also lost its knowledge of the soul arts. The souls lost during the pandemonium were never retrieved. And today, the unstable world has another monumental to hold its fabric together. A brave new hero of unprecedented power.
However, there's another choice on the table.
There is a question I have long had in my mind. It is whether we are right to banish the Old One. But I now have the answer, and it is a resounding no. Listen closely. The Old One must not be cut off from us. If the Candle Maiden tries to entrap it, kill her. Then absorb the souls of the Old One for yourself. The Old One is an unfathomable vessel. It contains all the souls collected by all demons. You will gain the power of a king, and I will gain knowledge from beyond. And that, my dear friend, is the righteous path. You must not allow trifling matters to dissuade you. The demon soul is ripe for the taking. If truth be told, that woman has been tainted by demons herself. She would thank you in her death for relieving her agony.
So, should you choose, you too can lust for more power and ignore the world at large.
The Old One senses a new and powerful demon by its side. And before long, the world will be engulfed by the deep fog. Bring more souls.
That wraps up this lore video on the story of Demon Souls. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you found that the theories I presented made sense. If you have alternate theories, I'd love to hear them and why. I know this video was fairly long, so I appreciate you sticking it out to the end. A huge thank you to everybody who supports me on Patreon: Sunshine Pickle, Zelkin Valorfax, Davis McGrath, Chris Fry and Jason Buck, and of course everyone else. It genuinely means a lot to me. If you enjoyed this video, please consider checking out some of my other content. I've been making From Software lore videos for 7+ years, and I put a lot of effort into my other videos, like my historical Who Made series, or my comedic retrospectives of games I love. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.